Can you see them? Don't think you can. A lot is said about Lumix cameras at the moment, and they are growing in popularity all of the time. I switched to Lumix about 18 months ago to the original Lumix S5. It tempted me over with all of its video features while still being great for photography, which is super important to me, but most importantly, the price of it. The price of it you could just not turn down, and very quickly I realised that this was the perfect hybrid camera for me. And then the S5 II came out, and I'm using the S5 II to film this right now, but that confirmed to me that I had made the right decision in switching ecosystems from Sony to Lumix. But there's a few things, some gear related, some not gear related, that I wish I knew earlier, because they would have probably made me switch even sooner. I find the menu system on Lumix to be one of the easiest to get around, because everything is exactly where you expect it to be and is named exactly where you expect it to be as well. Nothing is hidden. And this is one of the main things that I talk about when I say about finding gear that works for you, because I personally never really got along very well with the Sony menu system. It just didn't work for me in the way my brain works and how I wanted to find things. And I know they've got a new menu system now which is meant to be much easier, but it just didn't work for me, and there's nothing wrong with that. It might be the same for you. And that brings me on to the next point, which is that the whole system is so easily customizable, and that goes for all of your custom buttons and your custom presets as the dials and the buttons on the cameras, but also right deep down into the menu system and your quick menu functionality. Customizing your camera is nothing new, and you can do it on 99% of cameras out there on the market, but there are so many different ways in which you can do it. You can choose quick menu options, save custom modes on the dials, create your own menus, and just almost remap every single button on the camera. It's great. This is a massive one, but one which genuinely took me by surprise when I started to use it, because I'd heard a lot about Lumix and the colours before making the switch to Lumix, but I didn't realise just how much of a thing that it is. When you're shooting video and using Vlog, you have such a natural starting point to be able to move the colours around to be able to create the look that you want for your video. There's no colour shifts or temperature tints towards the magentas or the greens. It's just a nice, natural, solid starting base. And then you add in the dynamic range that Vlog provides, and it just makes it so easy and flexible to work with to be able to create whatever stylistic look that you want across your footage. As well as shooting in Vlog for video, shooting in standard picture profiles for photography is great. The colours are so natural straight from the camera, and I've even shot JPEGs and used the colours straight from the camera to post on social media before, and they look brilliant. Lumix works very closely with Leica when it comes to colour science and other areas of camera development as well. Nothing more needs to be said, really. A lot is said about Lumix cameras for filmmakers and videographers, and more people are switching to Lumix because of its video features, and that's nothing to be surprised about in a world that we live in where video is everywhere. But they are still great cameras for photography as well, and I think that quite often gets overlooked. 24 megapixels, which all of the S5 cameras have, is a great place for photography where you can get some really nice print sizes, but it is also more than enough for social media. That being said though, I do have one slight wish, in that I do want Lumix to release a camera with slightly more megapixels, just so there's a little bit more room for cropping and slightly bigger print sizes, maybe 30, 40 megapixels, something like that. There is the S1R, but that's been discontinued now, so that's my one wish for Lumix to release. Now this is something that I don't think you come across very often in the modern world, because online people tend to have very strong opinions, and if you don't agree with someone's opinion, it's very easy for someone to get offended. It's almost like you have to be Apple or Samsung, Canon or Sony, Red Bull or Mercedes, and you can't be in between. It has to be one or the other. Lumix doesn't have anything like that. It's genuinely just a really friendly, supportive community of people that enjoy using the gear, they understand it, and they help each other out. And I think that goes a long way to say a lot about the brand itself and not just the gear. But that's something, it's just one of them smaller things that I've come to really enjoy about using Lumix gear. When you buy into a new camera system, it's pretty common that you will end up buying the kit lens as well, just as a little bit of a placeholder so you can start figuring out your new camera system. And then over time, you'll buy new lenses and upgrade to others that will replace it. And your kit lens will then end up sitting on the shelf, gathering dust and never see the light of day. This though, the Lumix kit lens, the 20-60, is by far the best kit lens out there, and I'm not just saying that. This is a brilliant lens and I use it every single day and have done since I bought into the Lumix system with the S5. I have made a full video on just this lens, so if you want to go and check that out, I will link it down below. But this lens is genuinely worth having in your bag, and it's not very often you can say that about a kit lens. While we're on the topic of talking about lenses and gear, if you ever are unsure about shelling out a load of money on a new lens or on a new camera body, Lumix allow you to loan that piece of gear for 2 days completely free of charge with their loan scheme. You can try it out for even longer as well if you want to, but you will have to pay extra. But you pay your deposit, which is fully refundable, and when you send it back to them, they receive it, you get that deposit back instantly. It's a brilliant system and one which I'm not sure many other brands do. I think Canon do it, but I think it should just be commonplace really, because camera gear is expensive. You want to test out a piece of gear before you use it, and having a free loan scheme for a couple of days is a great way around that. It should just be a thing for every brand. This for me goes to show just how committed Lumix are to improving all of the time, because the S5 II, not that one, that's the S5, that is the S5 II. The S5 II has been out for just over a year now, and in that time it has had 2 or 3 fairly major firmware updates. The same can't be said for things like the Sony a7S III, which has been out for nearly 5 years, I think, and I don't think that has had one firmware update in that time. And it's not just cameras that Lumix will update with new firmware as well, it's lenses. They will update everything over time to make sure you are getting the best performance from your gear, and that just shows how committed they are to their gear and that it will last for a very, very long time, instead of just releasing a new camera what feels like every 20 minutes, like Sony. So there's a few things that I wish I knew about Lumix before making the switch, because as I said earlier, it would have probably made me switch even sooner. Now obviously it's not perfect. There are going to be things that you dislike about every single piece of gear you use, because there is no one perfect camera, there is no one perfect lens out there, and you're always going to be making compromises in some way or another. But overall, it's just about finding the gear that you like to use the most, and for me at the moment, at this point in time, it is Lumix, and it's going to stay like that for quite a while, I think. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you switched to Lumix from another brand? Are you thinking about switching? Or maybe you've just been a Lumix user for years and you just really like using the gear. Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and if you want to know more about the Lumix S5 II, I recommend you watch this video here, and I will see you over there.